And we're live. Welcome back to the Social Kick Podcast. I'm Brian Lundquist, joined by Luke Paddock, Dr. John Mullen, Justin Wynn, and our special guest today from down south in the hottest, humidest weather imaginable, Leah Stancil. Hi, Leah.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. What's going on? What are you up to?
Oh dear. Let's see. Not much. Today was a busy day, but I'm just kind of taking it day by day with my kids and my husband, and everything's pretty good. Tomorrow I have my last round of chemo, so I'm excited about that. Other than that, things are pretty good.
Well, we're excited that you're in good spirits and fighting hard, and that sounds good. Although we would love to be having a adult beverage with you tonight, but totally understand why that's not the case.
Yeah.
But Luke, what are you drinking tonight?
I had big royal plans for a lovely rum drink, which I have right here, which I'm going to show. But I wanted to show somebody how to open a beer bottle with a beer bottle. So I got the cheapest beer bottle I can find to show it. And I went all over my office. So I'm going to finish this off. But Leah, I'm going to dive into this right afterwards.
What is that?
Wow.
What's that number?
High tech.
What's that number, Leah?
896.
Yeah. That's your area code.
That's Trinidad's area code?
No, Barbados.
That's not your Barbados' area code.
So why it has 896? What's Barbados' area code?
No, Barbados' area code is 246.
So what is it? Okay, well, this is the Barbados
historian. What?
Oh, fail.
Well, you know what? Way back in the day, maybe way back in the day, but that was when everybody's area code.
All the Caribbean had the same area code, I think,
Yeah.
and that was it. So I'm the historian of accuracy. I'm not the current man knowledge of accuracy. I was like, but I'm gonna ask some Bajan rum because Barbados is getting better with their rum producing. Definitely, some of the Mount Gays they have out there, the really old stuff is very, really nice. And so now they sell it. So I'm gonna mix it though. However, I hope that's okay. But yeah.
For sure. I've actually never seen that rum. I love me some Mount Gay rum for sure.
Yeah, Mount Gay XO.
I've never seen 896 before. That's way back in the day, like when I was like a child, like born.
Well, you're missing out.
We had the boop, 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 boop.
Not this.
I do remember using a rotary phone at my grandmother's house. Like I'm old enough to know what that is. I think it's weird that there's places that I don't know. I'm trying to picture this. Like anytime that you have to put in a phone number somewhere or give a cashier a phone number, and I start giving the phone number and they course correct and say assume that it's the local area code. So here it's 831 or 408, and I still have my number from Auburn in Alabama. So I'd start the number 334, and then they go 408. I go, what? No, I don't. Who still does that? Like only goes by 10 digits and not the full or 7 instead of 10. I don't know. Yeah. Oh, John, what are you drinking tonight?
Just water tonight. I'm still at the office here. They just gave us some fun directives on how we can open our gym back up starting on Monday. So figuring out how we can work out when aerobic exercise is not allowed inside. So that should be a fun challenge there, and figuring out that more logistics, because even if we're outside, people still get to wear the mask. So a bunch of different regulations and rules to peruse. I'm at the building, so just drinking water tonight.
All right. Well, hopefully you can have a beer this weekend. It does look like at the office you've got a very official painting behind you.
Very official. Should have gotten in the room with the swimming painting, but this will work.
Justin, what are you drinking?
I have the last Health Aid kombucha in the fridge, so I got really lucky. It's the tropical punch flavor, just like last night with Due.
You're on the kombucha train. Something makes me think you didn't even open it last night. You just said it.
No. I drank that one. Don't worry. This is the last one in the fridge.
You're going to see.
Well, Leah, I didn't ask you if you had any sort of fancy beverage.
Oh, I just have my handy dandy water cup.
Oh, is that a Susan G. Komen cup?
Well, no, actually, it's a cup from Target, and this is a sticker.
Oh,
Even better.
well, at least I saw the logo. All right, you guys give me a little bit of help. All right.
Yeah,
Well,
I just want water.
I'm not going to pretend that it's actually from Barbados, but just in your honor, I'm drinking a longboard island lager.
Oh,
What's
congrats.
the area code on that?
I don't know. What the well, I think it's actually, these are Hawaii because it's Kona Brewing. So I don't know if they're actually made there, but anyway, yeah, probably are. Anyway.
Yeah, my Bayesian family taught me a Barbadian word recently. If John had that water in a bottle, what would you call it in Bayesian? A real strong Bayesian accent. What would you call his bottled water? No? Okay.
Enlighten us, the historian.
Bawa. Come on, say it in a Bayesian accent. Bawa.
Oh, bawa,
I'm going to get some bawa water. I can't do Bayesian accents. I'm not going to, but I thought you know. Okay, I failed twice.
This is an epic fail.
Again.
Are you making everything up tonight? I
That's
don't know what is going on.
Luke, just go back to using barrier slang. You're better at that.
Yeah. You're hella bad
Leah is
tonight.
friends with my Bayesian cousins, and so it's them who taught me. Your friend Stuart Motley, and all of them taught me about bawa. So I was
Bawa?
remembering that.
I guess so. I mean, I just never said it.
Justin, bring it back to
I
the right
believe you.
Sure, Luke, whatever you say.
All right, I sent Justin a picture. Bring it up. I got this from Barbados too. So I want Leah I want you guys to explain what this means.
Stan. Oh, you want me to
Stay at
explain
home.
it?
Well, John and Brian and Justin, figure out what are they saying here, and then
Stay
Leah
at home.
explain.
Stay in your house.
Right.
Stay at home.
Yeah, so stains. You get my Barbadian accent out.
Go.
Stand home. Help prevent the spread of COVID-19.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I got 1 out of 3. Great.
Well, I like
Take
the
my lead.
combining of words, but I have to say that when you're emailing before the show, that you're right, Luke. There's a few things that you say, and well, I hear you say it when you're around people when we visited Trinidad together. But I definitely hear it, and you're around your brother. But I see it in the written language too, where there's just different phrasing, different, I guess, rhythm to how the
Yeah,
structure goes.
Trinidadians sing when they talk. So Trinidadians sing. Barbadians have more of a chopped up kind of, good diction. That's a good word. But Trinidadians definitely sing. Like,
Yeah.
if I'm saying I am going to the beach in Trinidadian, then as a Trinidadian, I'll say, I'm going to the beach. That's how they kind of sing their little sentence as they talk. And Barbadians would say like something like, I'm going to go down to the beach real quick. Like the diction is very choppy, and it's a much harder dialect to mimic.
And so the music is quite different. Like when you hear Barbadian calypso and Trinidadian calypso, which is or the soca, it's very different beats and rhythms to it.
Yeah.
It's great. It makes some very, very funny songs, by the way. It's good.
Well, so you both traveled to each of these islands in your adolescence, growing up to Summit meets, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Leah, what was
I lived in Trinidad for 2.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah, we travel to different islands. Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah.
So what's life like growing up as an age grouper in the Caribbean?
For me, swimming was just social. It was all social. There was no sort of. My mother would always used to say that at age group meets, I would do my race, jump out the pool. I would come last, jump out the pool, and go in the play pool and just play. And then she'll call me and be like, Leah, it's another race, and I'll jump in, do the like. It was pretty much social for me until probably 15 years old. So that was my experience in Barbados. It just was just there to see my friends. That was my reason for swimming.
Barbados swimming was always interesting for us in Trinidad. Whenever we made a national team or anything, took a trip, we went to Barbados mostly because it was such an easy trip for us, right? It's a half-an-hour flight, it's nothing. But when I was a kid going across there, making my national teams or club teams, I'd be so excited to go to Barbados and they make us swim in a hotel pool. So as a kid, I was like, all right, I'm here in a hotel, and the beach is the Castorina Hotel is right on the beach, right, Leah? So we're going to the beach, we're playing in the water, and then we have an event. We have to jump into the hotel pool and swim. So Barbados didn't build a proper pool for clubs until you said 11 to 12, yeah? So
it was about 89.
89.
It was finished around 89.
So
it was about 11. That's about 11.
So it was hard to promote a culture of, at least in the small islands with few resources, that was not serious is the wrong word, because everybody there trained seriously and try to be serious. I mean, but water polo was played at the sea in Barbados, especially. We went there for championships. The resources really restricted what it did, but it still worked their butt off and still went pretty hard. But it's not until that pool came that I really think Barbados took off. Before yourself, Leah, what Barbadian Olympians in swimming were there? I don't know. Before you, were there any? So I should know this. I can't think of any. I can't think of any. I don't want to insult anybody from Barbados before you made it in '96. I can't think about. Most of the Olympians in the Caribbean came from the Bahamas, Jamaica, Trinidad, and those were the islands that had the most resources, to be quite frank, and a longer history of swimming. Swimming in the Caribbean started in 1960s. They all started from water polo. So water polo is what spurred swimming. A lot of swimmers came from the water polo environment, and so swimming is a young history from the Caribbean. It's 50 years, but swimming is also in the Caribbean quite an importance in world swimming. Most of the steps forward in black swimming has come from the Caribbean, and we can talk about now or later on, because it's not really answering your question, Brian. But yeah.
Sure, we'll save it for later. So what happens after what's the first step toward regional meets and traveling around to others? And what's the, what do you call it? What are the championship meets? When do you start competing with other countries?
So for me, and it's pretty similar now, the first thing that you're trying to really do is to compete at Carifta. And that's a regional meet with British Caribbean islands, pretty much. So Carifta is like the first step. I remember when I was younger, I was like, I would look at people that would go to Carifta and just think to myself, like, how do I get that done? Like I as I said, it was all social for me. So Carifta is the first rung, for lack of a better word. And then there's this other meet called CISC, which is Caribbean Island Swimming Championships.
Yep.
And there's another one. Then the next step is CCCAN. CISC and CCCAN alternate years. And then CCCAN includes Spanish-speaking islands too.
And Central America.
And Central America. So it's
Mexico
Central America and Caribbean championships or something along those lines. There's some Spanish in there somewhere. And then after that, after CCCAN, there's CAC. And CAC is Central American and Caribbean Games. And then from there, you have Commonwealth Games and World Championships. And then
Pan Pacs.
Pan Pacs, and you kind of build off of
Commonwealth Games,
those, and then Olympics is where you're trying to be at. But within the Caribbean, the first step is Carifta. And so for me, I would say people kind of started noticing me. And again, from my perspective, looking back, Carifta was like during my time was where the rich white kids. They were the first selected to go.
Yep.
And it was almost like you kind of had to have the in. And for me specifically, I went to my first Carifta. I don't know how it happened. I was on a relay. I was on one relay. It was a 4x100 relay. That was the only reason that I went there for. And apparently, I went last, and I guess we started off behind whatever team it was. It may have been Trinidad. It may have been Jamaica.
It must be Jamaica, never Trinidad, never. And
I passed whoever it was, and I won.
Yeah.
And so it was the first time that I gone on anybody's radar. Because again, I was playing around. It was solely social. I I was there for one relay. And so I think that was probably the time that I got on people's radar.
Yeah, that's where you get noticed is Carifta. There's a famous javelin thrower from Trinidad who won the gold medal in javelin, first person outside in the Western Hemisphere to win it, Keyshawn Walcott. And Keyshawn made his first Carifta team in the javelin in April, and 4 months later he won gold medal at the Olympics. It's like all of a sudden he got on the radar and he just accelerated and just went straight up. The Carifta is for track and field. That's the way you get started off in. Leah, which Carifta games was that? Do you remember?
I want to say it was like 90 or 91.
Yeah.
It was one of the. I was pretty young. I was in the 11 to 12 age group.
Yeah, so I was.
Oh wow!
I was at those games. But to those who are listening, who are parents of young kids or who are trying to make that Carifta team, it's a big step, but it's not the be all end all, is it either? I mean, you made your first game for the 11 or 12, right? So.
Yeah. So for me, and again, like when I talk to parents, a lot of the times, I strongly discourage parents to push their kids at such a young age. Again, because it doesn't really mean anything at the end of the day. You okay, Brian?
Yeah.
You got it. Yay! Hercules. So yeah, so I was like, yeah. So Carifta was for me was big. That was when all of a sudden, like, Leah can swim. Yeah, no crap, of course. But like, I remember I went back and that's when people started like, Leah, you have to start training now. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And I went to practice one day and I got kicked out of practice because I was going down to the bottom of the pool, playing I was playing because it's social time, right? And my coach at the time, do you know Ronald Mosley?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know his was it his son? His son swam as well, right? Yeah.
Anyway, so he was my coach at the time, but he's like very fun loving, and he was just like, Leah, just get out. And I was like, okay. And I went and I played, and my mother came back to the pool to pick me up at the usual time practice was over, and she realized that I was not swimming. She ripped me a new butthole. She was so angry at me. She was like, I don't believe you're wasting his time. You're wasting my time. I could have been home cooking dinner, blah, 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 blah. Oh, she went off on me. Needless to say, I never did it again. And after that, after every practice, she made me thank him for his time and thanked everybody that coached me. She was like, you're not wasting anybody's time again. So
what do you think it is like? Was that an adjustment for you to go from? I mean, did you continue to have fun as you got more serious about it and
yes, I continued to. I definitely continued to have fun. I just made sure not to get kicked out of practice. But I also did ballet at the same time. So I wasn't only swimming. I did ballet until I was 15.
I think that's important for younger kids. I mean, honestly, I think I was 15, 14 maybe the first time that I was solely swimming and playing other sports all before that. And were you the fastest in the group though?
Oh no.
No?
I was never the fastest in the group.
Really?
Ever. Never. Oh my gosh. I'm a horrible trainer. Yeah, no, I was never the fastest.
Well, okay, but were you the fastest in meets though?
Or
what was that like through your progression from 12 at Carifta, winning, closing a relay and winning for the team, and then so then you swam in college. There's a lot of development that happened in between there. What was that like?
I think I probably started to maybe win and be prevalent. If I remember correctly, when I was about 15, I started to take it seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably when I really started to win, I guess. To be honest, I didn't really pay much attention, obviously, because I don't really remember. The only time I really started paying attention to how I did in races was when I moved. And the focus was Olympics. Okay, because in Barbados, So I would say in the Caribbean, it's a different educational system. We have primary school and secondary school. So once you start secondary school, you do something called the 11 plus, and then you move into secondary school. So you're in secondary school from the time you're like 11 or 12. And so during that time, when you're in secondary school, they have swimming championships for your school. So I competed for my school, and yes, I won those races. So yeah, I guess I did win races when I was in secondary school, but yeah, I didn't really pay very, very close attention to how I was doing until I moved, and I specifically was focused towards training for 96 Olympics.
Hey, Brian and John, do you remember Dylan? So the last few Olympians in the Caribbean, most of them didn't get going in a national team until they were like 11, 12. George's first national team was 9 to 10. Dylan's first national team was Goodwill at 12, I want to say. Franz Huggins, correct me. My brother's first national team, Olympian, 11 to 12. Your first national team, 11 to 12. It really shows a lot. Hey, John, we talked about the early development and the athletes and doing all around sports and just enjoying it for the love. Yeah.
Yeah, big time. And we see it more and more where kids are specializing early. I'm sure Leah talks to parents and kids all the time that are, been swimming and only swimming from the age of 6 years old, right? But we see it quite a bit for not only their long-term athletic development, but also just their overall enjoyment a lot of time. All of us have been around the sport. We've seen tons of swimmers burn out, whether it's physical or mental, from just starting too early and doing too much too early.
So tell me about qualifying for Atlanta.
One thing that I think that we did a pretty good job of was I ended up, thanks to my parents, I went to a lot of international competitions. So in 93 was my first CAC Games. So that's the Central American and Caribbean Games. 94, I went to my first Commonwealth Games.
Vancouver, yeah. Where Perkins destroyed things. Yeah.
Yeah. And see, look at that historian. And then I just progressed from there. So I think I went to Commonwealth Games. I went to Pan Am Games before.
You went to Pan Pacs in 95, didn't you?
Went to Pan Pacs, championships, went to short course, but I went to a lot of international competitions to qualify. And so it was kind of an interesting time because Barbados was kind of not really trusting that I was going to be able to do what I was set out to do. So my coach at the time kept on telling the reason why I actually went to Trinidad was because my mother was told she can make finals in Olympics, but she has to move to Trinidad to do it. And for me, I was just like, no, whatever. But then when she told me that, I was like, but my friends, like, as I said, it's all about social for me. And so now I'm going to have to give up my friends and move to a country where I don't know anybody. And, so for the selling point, I guess, for my mother was, just try it, see what it is. You can come back home if you don't like it. So I just kind of toughed it out and I did whatever. And, there was a lot of competing and you just go in day out and do what you got to do. So to answer your question, it was just a matter of competing at all those different competitions and making the qualifying time. In my specific situation, I had to make so there's the A cut and the B cut. And so at first Barbados was like, okay, you have to make the A cut. Then you have to make the B cut. And I think I made the B cut, but then they were kind of stumbling and being like, I don't know about the B cut, make the A cut. And so at that time, my father is like bickering, putting stuff in the newspaper, getting angry because, publicizing that here it is, my daughter's trying to do what she's trying to do and they're kind of preventing her. But eventually I did the A cut. And so at that point,
the same thing happened. So in 96 with Sabi, he made the B cut and Trinidad went, great, well done. Just do it one more time. Like, what?
Yeah.
Leah, you're being humble about your training in Trinidad. Though. Describe the conditions you trained, the pools you swam at in Trinidad.
Oh goodness. So the first long time, I guess, the first probably 8 months maybe was in a 20-yard 4-lane pool with no lane ropes. It was this old hotel pool. I don't even think the hotel was even in service. I don't even know if the pool was in service. But yeah, it was a 20-yard 4-lane pool, no lane ropes. And then we graduated to the Hilton pool. We swam there for a bit.
Which is in the shape of Trinidad and Tobago. So it's not really a square pool, by the way, folks. I don't think they have lane lines, do they?
I don't even remember, but I just went where I was told. And then we kept on trying to get to Marlins, but Marlins was like, no. And Marlins had a long course pool, so no long course access for me. And then eventually we made our way, I think about, I would say maybe about 4 months before Olympics. 4 or 5 months before Olympics, we finally went to a pool in Arima with a 25-meter. It was a 25-meter pool,
which is like an hour commute from when you were staying. That's not fun. And what time was practice for you in the morning? You're legendary, known to train in the water at 5 or 4:30, something like that, right?
5
in the water at 5 a.m. with an hour commute.
Yeah, cool. And then before, we would get our long course training when we went to competitions. So I'd get in a long course pool when we went to competitions, which then it was random, because I know it's well, why don't we just go to Barbados? Barbados has a long course pool, but we went there maybe once. Don't get me, that's a complete story.
So you made the Olympics training in a 20-yard pool for a long time, and you made the Olympics in 53, and you made not only the B cut but the A cut. That's nothing. You didn't overcome anything. It was fine.
Yeah, I guess that was. Yeah.
Yeah.
It worked, right?
Yep.
So you had already qualified. So hold on. You trained in this way, and you went to some qualifying meets. Do you remember the meet in which you qualified? Or you had qualifying times? Because did you have to get it in both the 50 and the 100?
I would have had to get at least a B cut in one of them.
The swim, yeah.
So the A cut is basically, the B cut is to make sure is for me to qualify. But if more than one person is trying to qualify, both people have to do the A cut.
Okay. Were there multiple?
It's more difficult for another female to try to qualify, but there wasn't any other Barbadian female to qualify at that time. But
did you feel like you had any? You were fighting anything within within Barbadian swimming or anything, or did you feel like you had the full support? It was very clear. Here are your objectives, Leah. You do it. You're going to go to the Olympics. Because I think everyone was hesitant. Everyone didn't think that prior to me going. I don't think people really believed that
they couldn't go.
I would accomplish it. It's kind of like, here's this person trying to do this. Oh, that's great. Yeah, I'm not very good job of explaining it, but it was just kind of. I just remember my parents did a really good job of insulating me from the negativity that was coming. I did know that my dad was putting stuff in the newspaper complaining about the lack of support. I do know that because he was asking for help to get me to go to these different meets. So all of these meets were my parents out of pocket, for my parents to pay for me to go, opposed to nowadays where the Olympic Association is helping fuel this, cover the costs and stuff like that. So they started covering the cost after 96 Olympics. Then they were like, oh, wait, she really was training for the Olympics to do something at the Olympics.
In Barbados, you got two sports. You got soccer and you got cricket. And then after that, you got track and field. That's where the public goes, the support goes. So swimming was never there. And no Bayesian had made the finals of the Olympics in any sport, in any event. Mm-hmm. So it's it's understandable to understand where their doubt was coming from. At the same time, it also shows the power of the will that Leah had and the belief her parents had in her, which is great.
Well, so tell me let's jump forward to the Olympics then. So first of all, I'll share a personal story. Like I went to those Olympic Games. I grew up in Atlanta, and I got to see some of the swimming events among some other sports as well. But like, what do you remember about the Olympic Games? You swam in the Olympic final. And by the way, there was, a terrorist attack in the Centennial Park at that Olympic Games. Like, were you around in the village for any of that stuff? Like, just talk about what the Olympic experience.
So the coach that I had at the time was very, what I would call, help me, Luke, controlling. Let's put it controlling. And so for me, I was 18. So for me, I was just kind of, honestly, for me, Olympics was not, at that time, was not as significant in my mind as it should have been. Now that I'm older and I'm looking back, definitely was not as significant. I remember my mother saying to me, "Oh my gosh, I'm so proud of you. You're going to the Olympics." And I was like, "Calm down, lady. It's really not that big of a deal." And she was just like, "No, this is a big deal." And now that I'm a parent, like, I can only imagine if my children were to go to the Olympics, like the amount of pride that I would have for my child going to the Olympics. So, so I spent most of my time in the Olympic Village, which is awesome. I love being in the Olympic Village. It's just a fun environment to be in. Like, you're kind of isolated in this bubble of existence. And so if I left the village, was usually to go see my family or to go to the Olympic Park and stuff like that. But so when that terrorist attack happened, I was in the Olympic Village and they shut that place down. So anybody that was out stayed out. Anybody that was in stayed in. But I wasn't too concerned about it because, I was content where I was at. I was content hanging out with the other Barbadian athletes that were in there. Like, I had my most fun just hanging out with other Bajan athletes of other sports. I had the best time doing that. It was so much fun. And so fast forward to 2000 Olympics, I was determined to experience Olympics a little bit more, go out, see the city, not just stay in the village, but I was quite content being in the village.
Do you think in '96, just kind of being naive and not, like you said, you didn't even think the Olympics were that big a deal in your own mind, do you think that helped out with your success there?
Kind of. I think on the one hand, I tell my athletes all the time that, I could tell them how much I believe in them, how great I think that they're going to do. But at the end of the day, they're the ones stepping up on the blocks. So they're the ones that has to believe in themselves that they're going to perform really well. And I tell them that because I remember before the finals at Olympics, I remember my coach having me talk to a Brazilian swimmer, and he was trying to get through to me. You can medal. And in my mind, I was just kind of like, I don't know if I can medal. I mean, I did what I came to do, which was to make finals. I made finals. I'm content. In my mind, that was my internal dialogue. Very content that I made finals. I was happy with it. And then so getting a medal was not part of the plan for me. And it wasn't something that I believed that I could do. But now when I watch the race, I'm like, freaking A, I was right there. Like, if I really believed in myself, I could have medaled. And so, so on the one hand, yes, I think that it probably helped me, that it was just it really was just another meet for me, because I had gone to so many national meets prior to that. I had raced everyone that was in the final with me. So it wasn't like it was this crazy thing. I had experienced race competing against everybody that I'd competed against. And every competition I had gone to prior, I had finaled or I had been in the consolation final. So but I had never medaled. So I think that was, the norm of it was one thing, but if I had even just believed in myself a little bit, I probably could have medaled.
Did you feel like there was pressure at all? I mean, the pomp and circumstance of the Olympics and the huge crowds and the TV cameras and no.
Did you? So you had been to 4 or 5 major games outside the Caribbean beforehand, and in finals, you're definitely the only black swimmer in many of times you raced at that point. Did that play in you at the time? You were 16, 17, and 18 in Atlanta. Did that play in you at all? Were there any funny places you just laughed off? Were there things that hurt you? Talk about what's that like. So those who are listening, you are the first black swimmer to make the Olympic final in a 50-meter freestyle. I mean, since then, we've had a few, with Tony and Simone and stuff, but you were the first. You were the third black swimmer to make the finals in the Olympic swimming, I believe. Anthony, and before Anthony, there was a Curacao swimmer in 1976, 100 free. But yeah, talk about your experience there. Maybe not Atlanta even, but even before in Brazil or what have you.
I'll just trust your data because I don't know that for a fact.
Me neither. So Anthony Morrison, please correct me. You're listening. You're doing a really good job. So Anthony Morrison can correct me all right now.
What was your question?
When
I traveled, as a minority, you experience these things and it's just kind of like, oh yeah, I definitely would get a lot of looks. But I was talking to somebody the other day and I was telling them that I'm what I call a double whammy. I'm a female in a white sport. I'm a female and I'm black in a white sport. And so I consider that a double whammy with a coaching that is predominantly male and predominantly white males. And so, things have happened to me where I think to myself and I justify it. I think of it, oh, well, Leah, maybe if you had done this, maybe if you had done that, maybe if that had happened. But every time I try to self-correct and adjust, the same thing kept happening. And so it was similar with swimming when I was younger, where, you walk on a pool deck and you have people just staring at me. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, maybe they're staring at me because I'm tall. Like, maybe
from the Caribbean, yeah, but yeah.
And so, because growing up in the Caribbean,
it was because you were tall. It was because you were fast. It's because you had just set the Barbadian record. So there's Leah. Let's look at her. That's why
I didn't think of it that way. I didn't think anyone knew who I was. I still don't think anybody really knows who I am. So going to these different meets, definitely I had people looking at me. But again, I just thought it was because I was tall and they had just never seen me before. One time I tell this story all the time. One time I went to Japan for when World Championships was in Fukuoka.
Fukuoka, yeah.
And every time got in an elevator and a Japanese would walk in, they'll go, oh, just look at me up and down. And I'm like, yes, I am tall and I am black. Yes, I am.
Do you remember the swimmer Shaun Harewood? So Shaun went to those Fukuoka games for Trinidad. He was a breaststroker. So he and my brother went, and they all thought he was Michael Jordan. And so he played along with that, and he just signed Michael Jordan autograph left, right, and center for all the Japanese guys. My brother has this great story. Yeah, I'm Jordan. Here we go. It's black and gold. He's like, okay, there we go. Sorry.
Oh, dear. Yeah. So, but again, it wasn't anything, nothing traumatizing.
Yeah.
Going to these meets. Nothing was very traumatizing. Related to other people. Again, there are other situations, but related to other swimmers, and it's just people staring at me, and it's just
What about as your experience and you go to school at UF and find your way through sort of navigating the NCAA system and furthermore to expand into the coaching ranks. Like, did you feel like you had to overcome obstacles related to your race and gender, through those experiences?
From a coaching perspective, yes, a little bit. But so obviously I didn't come to the US until to start college. So I didn't come for high school or anything like that.
Yeah.
I came straight from the Caribbean to the US. And quite honestly, my father did not want me. He did not want me to come to it was between going to Australia and going to Florida. I really wanted to, I figured Florida's closer to home, so I really wanted to go to Florida. But he did not want me to go to Florida. He did not want me to go to Gainesville, Florida. I've never heard of Gainesville, Florida, first of all. But he was adamant, did not want me to go to Florida. And it was because of the racial reputation of the US, the racial reputation of Gainesville. He did not want me to experience that because we had friends who, now you have to understand, within the Caribbean, everyone's mixed with something. Like Luke, I'm sure, is mixed with something. And
sometimes I think a little bit of crazy.
Yeah. So everybody's mixed with something. So I had some close friends that actually went to Florida, and they had a really hard time. Like in Barbados, they'd be considered a Bajan white, but in the US,
who's this, Leah?
Considered white, and they wouldn't be considered black.
Yeah.
So she had a really hard time. A lot of racial situations happened with her. So these were really close family friends. So my father, I do not want to send her to Florida. The only thing that got him to let me go to Florida was that Anthony was there. So Anthony was one of the coaches. It was his first year. And I was like, Daddy, Anthony Nestie's going to be there. One of the coaches. Knowing full well, Anthony's with the men's team. My father didn't know that. Anthony Nestie's going to be there. I mean, it's going to be great. He's one of the coaches. That was the only thing that convinced him to let me go to Florida.
Good man.
So first of all, that, and I was like, Daddy, don't worry about it. It's no big deal. Like, that's so long ago. Like, race is not an issue anymore. And so he agreed to let me go. Well, the culture shock came to me when somebody, I don't remember who it was, somebody came to me and asked me, so how does it feel to be the only black person on the team? And I was like, I don't know. That was the first time race was like slapped me in the face, because in Barbados, it wasn't really part of your identity. Like, you didn't grow up thinking I'm black. Like you just, I don't know. So that was the first time that I think they asked me that, and then they were like, oh, or African American. I'm like, I'm not African American because I'm not American. I'm Barbadian. So I'm a citizen now, but at the time I was an international student. So it really opened my eyes. I didn't even tell my dad that story because God forbid, but it really opened my eyes at how much this country relies on race as being an identity. And so that was like the first time that I was just like, wow, this place really does look at, like, race is clearly a big deal. And so then I kind of just played it off like, whatever. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm the only black girl on the team. And just so happened I was the fastest. So it really didn't affect me all that much. I was like, whatever. And, but fast forward a little bit, eventually our team had got more black people. Like Janelle Atkinson, who's
from Jamaica, 400 for Florida.
Chantal Gibney came on the team. She's from Ireland. And so the three of us would make up a relay, and we would always joke around that the one white girl would be the honorary black girl on this relay because we needed 4 people on the relay. But officials would always mix Janelle, me, and Chantal out. And I'm like, I'm 10 feet taller than Janelle. Like, how could you even mix us up? So like stuff like those subtle things would happen to us all the time. But it's interesting. It was very interesting for me coming from the Caribbean and then coming here and realizing, wow, like you people really pay close attention to race. Like even like one of my teammates was like, oh yeah, I was trying to describe someone to you and I was having a hard time explaining who you were. And I was like, why didn't you just say the only Black person on the team? And she's like, oh no, I couldn't say that. I was like, okay, this is really confusing. Like, why can you not say that? And so it was just those very subtle things that would happen.
Yeah. I've been listening to this book, White Fragility. And
I want to read that book. I've heard this really good book. I'm reading White Supremacy right now.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I might recommend picking up an actual hard copy, just because it's not that. Yeah, the narrator is kind of drab, but anyway, they're talking about like the almost handicapping yourself and feeling like you can't say those types of things, like that being one of the problems about like white people discussing race is the inability to do so and feeling like you can't, feeling trapped. And so yeah, anyway, I mean, I think that's something to navigate for sure. So I want to talk about the coaching. Like first of all, did you always know that you wanted to be a coach?
No.
How did that come about?
It's kind of depressing, but
Leah was the quietest person on deck. Leah was my teammate a few meets, and she would be so quiet, just sitting in the corner. And when I found out she was coaching, I was like, "Oh, real? I know you're a sweetheart. You're so sweet and so nice. I could not imagine you like being a leader of troops, to be quite frank. But I haven't seen you in 20 years, so I'm obviously stuck in history." So, yeah.
No, I was very quiet, but you know why I was quiet. I'm an observer, but I am like quite talkative. It's funny. My husband is very not loud at all. So half the time he's like, Leah, stop talking. But anyway, I digress. How did I get into coaching? So I was in grad school and the whole plan was for me to be a sports psychologist. Like that's what I really wanted to do. I wanted to work with athletes and help them in performance. That was my ultimate goal. So I was in grad school getting my master's in sport and exercise psychology, with the plan of moving on and getting my PhD in counseling psychology.
Wow.
However, my dad passed away, so I couldn't afford to continue to go to school. And so I had to find a job. And the only thing I felt qualified to do was to coach swimming. So I got a job at Savannah College of Art and Design. And that was my first coaching job. And then from there, like I really, really enjoyed it. I really liked it. And so I just kind of moved on from there. And yeah, that's how I got into coaching.
Chantel disagrees with me. So Chantel was one of your swimmers at South Carolina, and then a two-time Caribbean Olympian. So what is Chantel right? Are you far from quiet as a coach?
Quiet. I'm definitely not quiet. I always say like I always tell my athletes, like one of the first meetings I had with my team here, is like I'm well aware that I have an RBF, but I promise you I'm not a mean person. Like you can come talk to me, but like I will. My Bajan comes out of me because in Barbados, like if you disagree with someone, you tell them. If you think somebody's an idiot, you tell them they're an idiot. Like if you like we're just very to the point. And so, which is a culture difference, definitely.
Hey, I like that. I could get behind that.
And so, so I kind of have to reel that back. Sometimes I'm like,
tell us a story. Tell us a story of you being on deck and you saying something. And like I tell these guys a story of doing a swimming coaching interview, and I got up and I said, "All right, everybody, 5 lengths freestyle," and they looked at me and they didn't move. I said 5 lengths freestyle. They looked at me, and the person who's evaluating me says, "Luke, what's a length?" I'm like, 5 laps freestyle. So let's talk about that. Do you have any anecdotes like that? I mean, the culture.
Oh goodness, I don't know. Like in terms of just telling people like it is.
Yeah, exactly.
let me put it in this way. So when I at Florida, like I had a reputation. Some of the girls on the team would describe me as savage. Leah is so savage. Oh my gosh! Like I'll just say whatever I'm saying. Like I didn't care. I didn't care if you're an Olympian, world record holder. I didn't care. I was going to tell you what it is, right? And so I had my first year at Tulane, and I happened to see one of my former swimmers on a trip. And she asked me, she's like, have you gone full Leah on them yet? No way. There's no way I can go full Leah on them just yet. And so I told one of my current swimmers that, and they were like, you haven't gone full Leah on us yet? I'm like, oh, hell no, I haven't gone full Leah on you yet. So it just maybe 5 years down the line, they'll experience full Leah. But
do you feel like full Leah is what you would do in the Olympic final, or and is that what's going on? It's going on in your head. Nobody can see it because it's quiet Leah. Boom, time to throw down.
Yeah, I mean, there've been times where I have like gone off on people. Just I don't know.
We can leave it at that.
I mean, I think that must have helped you in your career as a coach. To those who are watching, I just read the latest reports on Division I female head coaches. Leah and I were chatting earlier. So swimming has gone down from 16% of the head coaching of women's teams in Division I NCAA swimming. 16%. It's gone down to 12.7%, right? According to the Tucker Center report. And so I looked at those names, and those names comes about. Well, Swim had it at 27 names. I counted about 24 out of 195, right? So just under 30 female head coaches of about 200 Division I female women's swimming programs. So Leah and I are wondering, well, how many of those are black? And what's the answer? I only found one, and she's right here. Those are two major obstacles. And John, I'd like to talk more about this with you because John's wife is a female coach as well at the age group club. The systemic imbalance in swimming, in swimming and coaching for sure, and beyond that, you said the double whammy.
Yeah, I know. Like Luke said, as a husband of a female coach, I mean, you hear about how there are difficulties, and obviously when you look at college ranks or you get higher even within age group coaching, you see less and less female coaches because there are more at the lower level. And I was curious, what do you think the main barriers are that prevent women from moving up the chain of coaching?
Part of it, like, do you mean moving up to like college, you mean, or just
or even just like the head coach at a club? Because I think both. I mean, I think college it's more of a discrepancy, but at the head levels of age groups, there's also this discrepancy.
I think on the one, sometimes it is maybe a little bit. It can be challenging, especially if it's a female within that has a family, because a lot of the times these jobs, whether it's college or club, they are not catering that person, that female, especially if they have a family. Because for the longest while, as I mentioned, you have these white males, these older white males who are the coaches, whether it's club or college. And those older white males are typically old school, which means if they have children, their wife is taking care of everything. They're taking care of the kids, they're putting the kids to bed, like they're taking care of the kids. And so that's a big part of a female role, even with husbands that do help. My husband's awesome. Like he does a lot with the kids, like cooks dinner, he takes care of the kids. But at the end of the day, I'm the orchestra leader. I'm saying what's happening, who's going to what, who's going to swim practice, who's going to basketball, when they're going to basketball.
Full Leah.
And so that's hard. This is challenging. So sometimes, and that's with a husband that helps a lot. Mm-hmm. And some women that don't have that, they have still that old school role play of like they're doing everything. So I think that's a big challenge. And then on top of that, because you have these older males as kind of the role and the model of what they think swimming is supposed to look like, swim coaching, successful swimming coaching, you know, we get it in our heads, we need to do it that way. We've got to do. And so if you're like me, who's a mom of 3 crazy children, like, you think you have to do all this stuff to kind of keep up, to be successful in college and give to your family. And you kind of burn the candle at both ends. And so I would definitely say, just from my diagnosis with cancer, it's taught me that I don't have to do that. I don't have to follow that male model of coaching. I've definitely, it's hard. It was hard for me to learn it, but I've learned that I don't have to do it that way.
Did you feel like there was a time in your coaching career where you thought you were going to have to choose between your career or starting a family?
Yes, but not starting a family. But let me put it this way. I have been told, in my opinion, women are supposed to be raising families. So that's the role of the mother. So I don't really agree that you should be coaching. I've been told that. And so I've had to, and that's hard to hear because, you know, when in my heart, I don't think that is true. That plays with your mind. It plays with, well, you get some serious bout of mom guilt, a really strong bit of mom guilt. So then if you have that mom guilt and then you don't have, you know, I was fortunate enough to have a husband that was like, Leah, the kids are fine. We're taking care of it. Do what you have to do. Like, but I mean, you're just all up and down all the time.
Yeah, but Leah, it's also from the other side as well. If it's one thing, COVID, when is COVID going to hit the gender equality in swimming? COVID hit the work-life balance big time and made us all realize that we can work from home. We don't need to go to the office every day. You know, we can be as productive. What is Tulane doing to have had Daniela, Lena, Kate, and yourself as the last 4 female head coaches of their program in a row? What are programs doing to encourage female head coaches? Because honestly, are they doing the COVID moments? What is need to be done from that side of the house, the athletic directors, the administration?
So my athletic director here at Tulane, this is going to be his 4th season. So he's been here a relatively short time. And he is pretty much the reason why I took the job at Tulane, because I was very hesitant in taking it before I came on my interview, only because I was worried that I'm competitive. So I was kind of worried that they wouldn't really take swimming seriously. But he was adamant that he wanted to raise the level of the program. But he's also adamant in that you need to take care of your family first. Because basically, if family life isn't good, everything else is not going to be good. I mean, what for me, you know, being diagnosed with breast cancer, one of my like biggest thing, like the first thing that came to mind was, what's going to happen to my job? What's like, how, like, are they going to like tell me nicely, okay, Leah, I'm sorry, you've got to go. Like, I was really worried about that. But the first thing they told me was, take care of your health. We'll take care of the rest. Don't worry about it. And that meant a lot. That meant a whole lot. I mean, and they were adamant. They were like, do not worry. We will take care of everything. So yeah, I think a big thing is just allowing women to feel like it's okay to take care of their family. Because I can tell you for sure, for me, when I first started coaching, I felt like I had to prove myself that I belonged. And it was hard. It was hard on my marriage. It was hard on my family. It was hard on me to kind of have to prove that I needed to be where I needed to be. Companies
that make a genuine effort to be conscious about their people are going to create the places where the best people want to be. Organizations and universities are going to the exact same way. So kudos on the athletic director, kudos on the program at Tulane. Tulane itself has gone through quite a struggle with swimming career. Wasn't it disbanded after Katrina? and then they came back. I mean, they had to move their whole program. I think their pool even got flooded, right? So
yes.
It's quite a storied program, and it deserves a lot of kudos, and it should be modeled in other places. Brian, you had a question.
I just wanted to ask you about, we've brushed through a big thing going on in your life right now with your cancer diagnosis and the fight that you've been after there. So clearly you talked earlier about, other people not necessarily believing or buying into the fact that you were going to qualify for the Olympics, and but yet here you were believing that you were, or believing that you would get things done. And you seem to me as somebody who is able to let any sort of outside influences not really get to you, and that probably serves you well in this current phase of the next challenge that life has thrown at you. So just what's been your mentality, and what you think, what's been going on in your mind as you've navigated this path?
You mean within the past year, you mean, with my diagnosis, or just in general?
Yeah.
So as it relates to my diagnosis, I equate being told you have breast cancer to being bitch slapped across the face and run over by a Mack truck, all at the same time. Like, it's just this, the wind just gets knocked out of you. In my specific case, my cancer was pretty aggressive, so they threw everything at it. So I had chemo, then I had surgery, then I had radiation, and I have chemo the whole time. Tomorrow's my last day of chemo. So it was a year long. It was a year-long process.
Wow.
So I started, my first round of chemo was July 19th, and my last one's going to be July 10th. So it was a long process. And honestly, sometimes I look back and I'm like, I really don't know how I did that. It's only by the grace. I have a very strong faith. So my faith in God was a big, big, big part of it. But kind of going back to what I said about learning that I didn't have to do it the way that it was modeled. One of the biggest things that I had to learn was to take it day by day. Mm-hmm. It's the simplest thing, but it was the most difficult thing to do because I'm a planner, or I was a planner. I'm still a planner, but I would plan for months down the line. As a coach, you're trying to plan the season months down the line. And I tried to do that at first, and I would get really overwhelmed. So it was really a big part was just kind of learning what my schedule was. And essentially I went day by day, but in terms of the season, I just planned 3 weeks by 3 weeks by 3 weeks, because my therapy was every 3 weeks. And so my phases, for lack of a better description, was from days 5 to 13. I was a hot mess. So my emotions were all over the place. My biggest side effect that gave me the biggest issue was my taste. Like, my sense of taste was horrible. And that really affected me emotionally because nothing tasted good. So
what's the biggest thing that you used to love and then throughout cancer hasn't tasted as good?
Sugar.
Really?
So right now I'm fine. So my first 6 rounds of chemo, I had 4 different drugs. I split my poison cocktail. And but the chemo that I'm taking now is just 1 drug, so that it's not as much side effects as the 4 that I had. So the first 6 rounds was 4 medications, and sugar. Anything sweet tasted horrible. I can't express how horrible sugar tasted. And I had a sweet tooth. And so citrus was fine. Anything citrus, anything really, really cold was fine. But usually day 10, I'm having a breakdown. My husband is literally picking me up off the ground because I am just I'm a hot mess. So it's like, but I got to know when I would go through that. But yeah, it was tough. it's tough to, it's one to kind of feed out those, like, having thick skin and letting things roll off your back. After a while, those get to you too. And praise God for my husband, who's able to kind of pick me back up and get me to where I need to get to, or to remind me of, I have a family that loves me and everything. But yeah, the cancer treatment was definitely an emotional roller coaster, without a doubt. And my athletes and my staff were, they were my rocks, without a doubt.
Leah, you talk about your rocks, your athletes, your staff, your faith, your husband, your family. Do you think that your swimming career helped you physically and psychologically, just to overcome adversity, to have a healthy body to fight this? Did the doctors talk about that? Did you guys, the psychologists, talk about that?
Yes, without a doubt. And kind of going along the lines with what you had said earlier, Luke, I kind of underplay what I do, and what, for me, taking it day by day, like, that's just what I have to do. That's, I got to get up in the morning. I got to make sure I got to do everything that I possibly can do. The problem was physically, sometimes I just couldn't do it. Like, my body just was not allowing me to do it. And so, I had to explain to my husband at one point that, my go-to is go. I'm going to push because as an athlete, that's what you're taught to do. Push through the pain, But when you're going through chemo, your body is like, hell no, like, you're done. There's no pushing that's going to take place. But that helped me because I think the training of the past, helped me to learn to get up and just face the day. It's discomfort, but some things, you do what you can do, and you kind of, take what you can take. In terms of physicality, yeah, I mean, like, after my surgery, for example, the nurses were like, "Oh, you're so easy. You got up and started going so easily." And I'm like, I got to get up, and I can't.
I'm a sprinter. I get out of here.
But the nurses were telling me that, like, they have such a hard time sometimes getting people out of bed from surgery, and they want them to get out of bed.
Yeah, walking.
Help with their healing, and I'm just like, oh, okay.
Leah, how do you deal with fear and doubt? I mean, we all have fear. I know you have fear. So, I mean, you're the first Bayesian to make an Olympic final. There was doubt everywhere. You, as far as I know, the only Black female head coach in Division I female swimming. You've overcome so much stuff, and do you just not think about it and you just put your head down? How do you deal with fear and overcoming that, and have the courage, I guess?
And like, for those, that kind of, I just don't pay attention to. Like, I just didn't, like, I didn't know before today what you said, I didn't know before I went to the Olympics, that final at Olympics, I didn't know that data. But to combat that kind of, everyday fear or everyday, lack of confidence, to be honest, prayer, a lot of prayer. Like, because I experienced all of those things. I actually recently, when I say recently, at the start of COVID, I started doing a prayer journal, because I would, I'd wake up with a bunch of different fears. If there's one thing cancer has taught me, that I'm a control freak, but one thing cancer has taught me is that I really don't have much control over anything. And so
it's hard. Yeah. So
yeah, definitely prayer is a big one for me.
How do you feel a responsibility, or do you have something driving you to give back to that Bayesian swimmer, that Caribbean swimmer, that Black swimmer, that female coach? Do you have a special place for that? Naturally, must, right? Have you, or is it across your mind, or you just all the same and you just give back to everybody? One love.
What do you mean?
I'm from Trinidad, and I'm always talking to these guys about the international perspective and just trying to take the U.S. swimming out to the world and bring the world into U.S. swimming. I'm very conscientious about being inclusive in the sport, and recognizing our white privilege. And I think I have a responsibility to try and tell that story, just because of the experience I went through. So I'm trying to give back to the community and do clinics, what have you. You've gone through a lot more and gone through a lot bigger obstacles. Have you, and you're now a coach and you've influenced hundreds of athletes, hundreds. Have you stopped to think about that? Stop to think about.
I think I'm a little bit too modest sometimes, but
yeah,
I try to give back to Barbados. Actually, I was supposed to go to Barbados to do 2 different camps, and each time, the first time, I got the job at Tulane, so I couldn't go, and then the second time I was diagnosed with cancer, so I couldn't go. So I'm always trying to get back to Barbados to do clinics. We actually have a Bajan girl coming to Tulane this year, so I'm really excited about that.
Did you help in that? Did you help that and help? You know what I mean? Did you encourage her to apply to U.S. schools and etc.? Yeah, great.
Well, I didn't really encourage her to encourage her to apply to U.S. schools until she obviously was legal for me to talk to.
Of course, yeah.
But yeah, for sure. Once she was legal, I reached out and let them know that I can't remember if I reached out or if they reached out. But yeah, I'm always eager to do that. I kind of wish that I reached out to more to do those type of clinics and stuff like that. I'm obviously limited as to how much I can do. I'm limited to who I can speak to, and which is unfortunate because
it is unfortunate. And I'm bringing up this question because Leah, you're right. I don't think you realize the influence or the mentorship that you can bring to a lot of people in the community, not just swimmers, but outside of swimming. For those who don't know, you were inducted to the Barbados Hall of Fame with one of the world's greatest ever cricketers, Sir Gary Sobers, and one of the greatest runners of all time, Obadiah Thompson. Right? I think they're in your class with you. These are legends. These are the Babe Ruths of cricket, and these are they're fantastic athletes, and you're in there. So Barbados definitely recognizes you. You are a queen in their eyes, and I think that there's so much to be said. That there's a responsibility almost for the wrong word to be said. Which I think it's important for you to be on the show and people to watch and listen and hear from you. I mean, you got in touch with Cheryl Thompson recently, and athletes like Cheryl. It's good for her to know your experience and listen to you. I just think it's important for us all to just talk about it.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny because as I told you guys before, I'm an open book. I will talk your ear off about stuff that I've gone through. Yeah, it's just a matter of I think sometimes people in the Caribbean are hesitant to ask for help too, and I think that's an important thing that needs to be broken. And I don't know why it exists. Sometimes there's a little bit of pride. I mean, something as simple as being diagnosed with cancer. Oh, you don't talk about that in the Caribbean. No. Like it's just you keep your private life, and you have this facade of like everything's okay. While me, on the other hand, I'm like, I got a problem. I'm going to say it. So,
Lee, we had a couple questions from the audience while we were talking. So Justin's going to pop in and.
Well, I'm back. Well, we have been enjoying hearing everything you had. Thank you for coming on the show. We have a great question from Jackie here. As a female coach, have you had a mentor coach who had an impact on your career?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think my biggest mentor is Anthony. Shout out to Anthony. He is my bud. Yeah, he's definitely my mentor. He's, he was a coach when I was at Florida, but then more importantly, when I coached at Florida, he helped me grow a lot as a coach. Just observing him, the way he works with men and women athletes is pretty inspirational. If any of you know Anthony, he's pretty chill, slow talking, but you don't mess around with him. He'll put you in your place if he needs to. And so Yeah, without a doubt, Anthony is.
Give me an example. Give me an example of one lesson or one set or one speech or one comment he made that that resonated and changed how I thought about coaching or swimming.
So Anthony's really big on respect and honesty, and those are his two big things. He is it's important to him that athletes and people in general are honest with themselves and they're honest with other people, and showing people respect. He's big on you treat others how you would like to be treated, and he's just really good at I don't know how to explain it. If you come across another Florida swimmer, they would have, especially if another male Florida swimmer, they would have a story about Anthony, something that he has come up to them and said, I don't know how to explain it without dropping the F-bomb. He just in such a way that's there's not much yelling and screaming, but he just comes down. If any of you that have children, you know how they talk about when you're talking to their child, you come down to their level and you talk to them, whatever expectation it is that you want them to do. So he'll come and speak to someone face to face, level to level, and be like, "You effed up, you big," and it's just matter of fact, no yelling. I don't know. I just really appreciate his way of speaking to people and trying to motivate people. He's just really, in my opinion, he's really good at that. And I had 10 years to be able to observe him and watch him coach both men and women. So
those who want to get an idea about Anthony, just watch that 100 fly final and watch when he touches the pads and his celebration. And what happens right afterwards? He goes from just a simple fist bump to jump out over the pads. The official says no, and he gives that official the biggest cut eye in the world. He's like, "I'm the Olympic champion." He's like, "Really? Whatever." And he just takes off. And I think that in a nutshell describes what you just said. He just touched the wall, biggest upset ever, first Black Olympic gold medalist. He just goes like this, and goes off.
I have a really good story actually. One of our when we were in college, one of my teammates, we were in Atlanta airport, and apparently this is a story that the guys tell all the time. When the guys walked into the bathroom in the Atlanta airport, and he goes, "Is that Anthony Nesty? Anthony Nesty, Olympic gold medalist?" And Anthony's very he is you do not talk about Olympics with him. Yeah. And so they had a big laugh and they left. And Anthony went up to the guy and went to his ear and he goes, "Don't you ever effing do that to me again." that. So how very calmly to his ear, "Don't you ever effing do that to me again."
It's awesome.
How often have you called him a trickadadian? You never call her a trickadadian.
I don't usually. It's funny because he calls my children Guyanese. So Suriname and Guyana have this rivalry, and he calls my children Guyanese because they eat anything. And so, yeah.
I love Guyana, but they're neighboring to Suriname, so yeah, it's a big thing.
Yeah, they have a very it's a big rivalry between Suriname and Guyana. But yeah, every once in a while I call him a trickadadian.
Nice.
Pretty much all Trinidadians.
Leah, we have another question from Cedric. He's a coach and seems like a program manager for a swim club over in Oakland, so just across the bridge from myself.
Nice.
He asked, how can we create a more consistent interest in swimming in the Black community?
Honestly, I think just having it available. Swimming is an expensive sport. And I mean, I'm a swim coach, and I was not, when I first moved to Louisiana, I didn't want to put my kids in swimming because it was so expensive. And I'm like, I'm not spending this much money on swimming. So fortunately, there was a club that was willing to let them, because I was a swim coach, was willing to let them swim without paying fees. Obviously, I had to pay my registration and all that kind of stuff. So I think in order to make it more consistent within the Black community, I think just bringing more attention to it, but making it less expensive, somehow creating, and I don't know how it's done in the US. Like in Barbados, swimming is required part of school. It's part, buses are taken to the pool from schools and swimming is done. That is part of their PE.
Wow.
And so I don't know how to do it here in the States. And that's how they the interest of swimming, because then parents then put their kids in swim lesson and they're willing to invest. I think if parents don't know about it, why would they do it? Why, if it's not easy to be done? But it's an expensive sport. And so I think there needs to be a way to create some sort of program or situation where you're able to get those kids from those Black communities to the pool to ensure that it becomes an interest. Again, I didn't grow up within the US, so I don't know what that would look like here, but I do know in Barbados, like swimming is a curriculum. And so it's done within the schools. And
Leah, were you around the propaganda growing up that Black people literally never going to be good swimmers because they're too big boned or they're too muscle bound and all that crap we used to hear? Do you remember hearing all that stuff?
I do remember hearing that. But I also was like around the time when Anthony had won his gold medal. And
I talk about that. He just mashed up that whole nonsense.
Yeah, it's very contradictory. So like, again, my parents did a pretty good job of like kind of.
Yeah, absolutely. But so therefore I think it's the culture that we create as well. We have to have an inclusive, welcoming, supportive culture that, swimming is a sport that you are a human. You put work in, you will excel. That's all it has to do with it. So give them opportunity, treat them like a human, give them the opportunity to do the work and the opportunity to excel. And do well.
100%. Yeah. And again, like in Barbados, I don't even know the percentage. There's majority are Black people. So the majority of the people I'm swimming with are Black. So it just completely, you hear this statistic, this Black people can't swim, but wait, I'm with a bunch of Black people.
See, in Barbados, they so are for swimming that if a fish decides to fly, they eat it. So if they're
that's our national fish, flying fish.
They're like, you flying? You're gone. That's cutters.
So good.
You're 2 for 4 on the show today.
No,
history facts.
I appreciate my audits. Don't worry.
Fish cutter, yeah, you're right. Fish
cutters it. Yeah.
All right. He actually is from where he says he is. Sometimes we wonder. All right. Well, thanks so much, Leah. It's been an awesome talking to you. Congrats on finishing chemo last day tomorrow. Keep on.
Thank you.
Nice work. We're looking forward to watching you continue to forge path for future Caribbean athletes and female coaches. Keep doing it. You're an inspiration. Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Leah.
We'll be back next week talking to Nathan Adrian next Thursday, 6 o'clock. So tune in. Till then, have a good weekend. See ya.
All right. See ya.